At my daughter-in-law's baby shower, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You didn't need to come. It's for my friends." She was wearing a blush pink satin dress that matched the streamers and cupcakes behind her. Everything was picture perfect, just the way she liked it. Her hair was styled, her makeup flawless. Her smile, though, was the same polite one she always gave me, tight-lipped, barely hiding her irritation. I smiled back and said, "Oh, I know. I just came to drop off a gift." The women around her sipped sparkling cider and laughed nervously. I could feel the air shift as I stepped closer. Kaylin hesitated. She didn't like not being in control, but she played along, the way people do when they know others are watching. "That's sweet," she said, voice sweetened with just enough sugar to cover the ice beneath it. "What is it?" I held out a plain white envelope. No bow, no fancy wrapping. Just the kind of envelope that doesn't hold anything you want to read out loud in a room full of friends. "Custody papers," I said. "Your ex signed this morning." The room went quiet, utterly, completely still. Kaylin's fingers froze around the envelope. Her face, perfectly powdered just moments ago, drained of color. A couple of her friends looked away. One of them, a tall woman in a lavender jumpsuit, actually gasped. I heard another whisper, "What did she say?" Kaylin didn't open the envelope. She didn't need to. She knew. I watched her eyes flicker, first to me, then to the envelope, then back again. She was trying to decide how to react in front of her audience. She didn't yell. She didn't throw anything. That would have made her look unhinged. And Kaylin never lets herself look anything less than perfect. "You can't do this," she finally said. "I didn't," I replied. "Mikhail did." That was the first time I saw the fear behind her eyes. Not because of me, not even because of the papers, but because she realized she had miscalculated. She thought I was weak. She thought I was the kind of woman who would shrink back when told she wasn't welcome. She thought I would always stay silent. Smile, nod, back down. Not that day. The irony was I hadn't come to make a scene. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even plan to stay. I walked in, delivered what needed to be delivered, and walked out. I didn't come for Kaylin. I came for my granddaughter, Avi. I came for my son, Mikhail, who had been torn apart by the woman standing in front of me, now clutching an envelope that would change everything. As I stepped back toward the door, the music picked up again faintly, as if trying to erase the moment. Kaylin stood frozen, surrounded by flowers and gifts and people who suddenly didn't know where to look. I didn't glance back. I didn't need to. I had done what I came to do. And now the real story could begin. My name is Silma Reeve. I'm 52, born and raised in Nebraska, and I've spent most of my life learning how to do hard things quietly. I raised my son, Mikhail, by myself after my husband, Warren, died in a factory accident when Mikhail was 6. There was no life insurance, no savings, no family wealth to fall back on. Just me, my son, and whatever strength I had left after each day's work. Mikhail was the kind of boy who didn't give me trouble. He was soft-spoken, loyal, always more interested in reading than running wild like the others his age. Even back then, I worried the world would eat him alive. And maybe, in some ways, it did. He met Kaylin Drew when he was 23. They were both working for a startup in Des Moines. Kaylin was bright, beautiful, polished in a way that caught people's attention the second she entered a room. She had a business degree, an expensive car, and a smile that could sell anything. Mikhail fell hard, the way quiet boys often do when someone loud and magnetic shows them attention. When he brought her home for the first time, I did what any mother would. I cooked, I cleaned, I tried to make her feel welcome. But I knew from the start that Kaylin didn't see me as family. She saw me as an inconvenience, a reminder that Mikhail didn't come from money or status or a high-rise apartment. She was kind, but only in the way you're kind to someone you don't want to talk to. Still, I kept trying. I helped them move into their first house. I sewed the nursery curtains when Kaylin got pregnant with Avi. I offered to babysit, to clean, to cook freezer meals. I just wanted to be useful. I wanted to be part of my granddaughter's life. Kaylin never said no directly. She was smarter than that. She just created distance. We're busy. Avi has a schedule. We're trying to get some family time. That kind of thing. The moments I did get with Avi were small but beautiful. Her laugh lit up everything. She had Mikhail's quietness and her mother's sharp little eyes. I loved that child more than I can describe. After Avi was born, Mikhail started to change. He looked tired all the time, quieter than usual, withdrawn. I asked if everything was all right, and he'd say, "Just work stress." I wanted to believe him, but mothers know. Something was off. Then, about a year ago, Mikhail called me from his car. I remember the rain beating on my kitchen window while I stood holding the phone, my hand shaking. He told me Kaylin was seeing someone else, a coworker. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. And the worst part? She was pregnant again, and it wasn't his. He sounded defeated, like someone had emptied him out and left him running on fumes. I asked, "What are you going to do?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I don't know. She wants a divorce." She filed the papers 3 weeks later. Kaylin wanted full custody of Avi. She said Mikhail's work schedule made him unreliable. She said I was too old to help. She said she needed a stable environment to raise both of her children. It was like being erased. All the meals I'd cooked, the nights I'd rocked Avi to sleep when Kaylin didn't want to get out of bed, the rides to preschool, the afternoons at the park, none of it mattered. But Mikhail fought. He tried, even though I could see how much it wore him down. I saw him crack at the edges. He was a good father, but Kaylin had money, a good lawyer, and an image that fooled people. She knew how to speak the court's language. She knew how to win. What she didn't know, or maybe didn't believe, was how far I would go for my family. I wasn't loud, I wasn't rich, but I had raised a child through grief and hardship. I had kept my head above water when everything tried to drown me, and I wasn't going to let Kaylin take Avi away from the only real home she had ever known, not without a fight. Kaylin moved fast after the divorce was filed. Within days, she'd taken Mikhail off the preschool's emergency contact list and updated Avi's records to reflect her new last name, even though it wasn't legal yet. When Mikhail protested, she claimed it was just a paperwork mix-up. Everything with her was like that. Deliberate moves hidden behind casual excuses. At first, the court gave them joint custody. It was temporary until a final hearing. Mikhail had Avi every other weekend and Tuesday evenings. I helped when he couldn't get off work. Those Tuesdays became everything to me. Avi and I would bake cookies, paint rocks in the backyard, or read together on the porch swing. She'd fall asleep curled against me like she did when she was little, safe and warm. But every time she returned from Kaylin's, something was different. She was quieter. Her eyes held attention I hadn't seen before. Once she came back with a red mark on her arm. When I asked about it, she said she'd fallen off the couch. A week later, she had a bruise near her collarbone. I asked again. She whispered, "Mommy's friend pushed the table too hard." I felt something cold settle in my chest. I reported what she said to Child Protective Services. They came out, asked questions, took notes, but Kaylin was ready. She played the part perfectly. Apologetic, tearful, full of concern. She told them Avi was clumsy. She even pulled up photos of Avi on jungle gyms and said she'd always been adventurous. They closed the case within a week. Mikhail was crushed. "It's her word against ours," he said, "and she always wins." Kaylin's new boyfriend, the one she'd cheated with, moved in shortly after, a man named Grant. He was slick, all smiles in public, but cold behind the eyes. The one time I ran into him at a drop-off, he wouldn't even look me in the face. Avi clung to my hand that day like she didn't want to let go. Kaylin's control tightened. She started making excuses to cancel Mikhail's visitations. "Avi has a fever. We're out of town. She's exhausted after school." It became a pattern, and the more we pushed, the more resistance we got. One night, Mikhail came over after work. He sat at my kitchen table and stared at the floor for what felt like an hour. Finally, he spoke. "She said she's going to take Avi and move to Arizona." I felt the floor tilt under me. "Can she do that?" "She's trying, says it's for Grant's job, says it'll give the baby a better future." I knew what it really was. It was a clean break. Kaylin wanted a fresh life, a new man, and no interference. She wanted to erase us, just like she always had. Mikhail was drowning. His work performance dropped. He started forgetting things. He missed one of Avi's school events by mistake and cried about it for hours. The weight of the fight was crushing him, but I couldn't give up. Not when that little girl was caught in the middle. Then came the day everything changed. Avi was supposed to stay with us for the weekend, but Kaylin called Saturday morning to cancel, saying Avi had a cold. Mikhail and I decided to stop by anyway, just to check in. When we got there, Kaylin wasn't home. Grant answered the door. He told us Avi was sleeping. Mikhail asked to see her. Grant said no. Mikhail asked again, more firmly. Grant stepped closer and said, "You people need to learn when you're not wanted." That was it for me. We didn't argue. We didn't yell. We walked away. But that same night, Mikhail called his lawyer. 2 weeks later, after long conversations and even longer nights, Mikhail signed a notarized agreement. He was giving me full temporary custody of Avi until a formal hearing could be held. It broke his heart, but he knew it was the only way to protect her. He loved his daughter enough to put his pride aside and trust me with everything. "I can't keep doing this, Mom," he told me, his voice hoarse. "I want her safe. You can give her that." I held the signed papers in my hands that had once rocked Mikhail to sleep when he was her age, and I knew what I had to do next. Kaylin had taken everything for granted. She thought I'd always play nice. She thought I'd stay quiet, stay small, stay in my place. She was wrong. I kept the envelope in the top drawer of my dresser for 4 days. I checked it every morning and every night, like I was making sure it was still real. Inside were the signed custody transfer papers, notarized and stamped. Mikhail had handed them to me with shaking hands, his eyes red but determined. "I know she'll come after me for this," he said, "but I don't care anymore. I'd rather lose sleep than lose Avi." We'd already filed a motion for emergency custody with the court. The lawyer said it could take weeks, maybe longer, depending on how quickly Kaylin contested. But this agreement gave us leverage, and it gave Avi a shield. The hard part wasn't the paperwork. It was knowing how to deliver it. I knew Kaylin wouldn't respond well to an email, and I wasn't about to let her spin it into something ugly through her attorney. This needed to be face-to-face, director, no filter, no room for confusion. Then I heard about the baby shower. A mutual acquaintance, the mother of one of Avi's classmates, called me about it by accident. She was under the impression I was invited. "It's next Saturday, at that new boutique hotel downtown," she said. "It's going to be beautiful. I think Kaylin hired a planner." That's when it clicked. Kaylin wouldn't be expecting me. She didn't even consider me part of the guest list. And maybe that's what made it the perfect time. Not to embarrass her, not to punish her, just to cut through the noise and say what needed to be said without the fake smiles and pretty lies. I picked a soft blue blouse and black slacks. No jewelry, no makeup, just clean and simple. I didn't want to be mistaken for someone trying to make a statement. I wasn't there for the show. I was there for my granddaughter. Before I left the house, I kissed Avi on the forehead while she napped on our couch. She looked peaceful, surrounded by the stuffed animals I had rescued from Kaylin's donation pile weeks before. I brushed a curl from her cheek and whispered, "I've got this." The hotel was as over the top as I'd imagined. The entire lobby was filled with pale pink balloons, flower arrangements, and custom signage that said "Baby Drew coming soon" in gold foil. A hostess tried to stop me when I walked into the reserved event space, but I told her I was family. She hesitated for a moment, then let me through. Inside, the room buzzed with conversation, camera flashes, and the clinking of mocktail glasses. Everything was curated and filtered to perfection. Kaylin stood near the cake table, glowing and laughing, surrounded by women in matching satin robes. She spotted me within seconds. Her smile dropped for just a flicker, barely long enough for anyone else to notice, but I caught it. She stepped forward, holding a crystal flute in one hand and adjusting the sash on her belly with the other. "You didn't need to come," she said, her voice low, her eyes scanning the room. "It's really just for my friends." I smiled gently and nodded. "Oh, I know. I just came to drop off a gift." I reached into my handbag and pulled out the envelope. Simple, unlabeled, unmistakable. I held it out to her like it was any other card. She gave me a polite, public-facing smile. "That's sweet. What is it?" "Custody papers," I said. "Your ex signed this morning." The words hit like a hammer, though I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. A few of her friends turned their heads. The entire circle around her seemed to pause mid-laugh, mid-sip, mid-breath. Kaylin stared at me, frozen. Then she looked down at the envelope like she was unsure if touching it would set off an alarm. For once, she didn't have a practiced answer ready. "You can't just do this," she said finally. "I didn't." "Mikhail did," I replied, "and the court has been notified." I stood there for a moment longer, just long enough for her to understand that I meant every word. Then I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. I walked to my car slowly, heart steady, hands calm. I hadn't caused a scene. I hadn't yelled or accused. But I had done what I promised Mikhail and myself I would do. I had drawn a line, a quiet one, but one that would not be crossed. I didn't sleep much that night. After I delivered the papers to Kaylin at the baby shower, I drove home and sat in the driveway for a long time. The street was quiet. Avi's bedroom window glowed with soft yellow light. Mikhail was inside, reading to her. It should have felt like victory, but all I felt was weight. Not regret, not doubt, just the heaviness of knowing what came next. The next morning, Kaylin's name popped up on my phone. I didn't answer. She called again an hour later. Then came the texts. At first, they were polite. "We need to talk about this." Then, angry, "You're overstepping." Then desperate, "Please don't take her from me." I didn't respond. My lawyer said not to. That afternoon, Kaylin showed up at my door. I had just finished making lunch. Mikhail was at work, and Avi was in the living room building a puzzle on the rug. I opened the door, and there she stood, hair pulled back, makeup undone, holding the envelope I'd given her the day before like it was poison. "You can't be serious," she said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "I'm completely serious," I said. "And so is Mikhail. The papers are signed. The judge has them. This isn't a threat. It's done." Kaylin's jaw tightened. "You're using him. You're manipulating him because he's fragile and broken, and you think you know best." I didn't respond to that. She didn't get to twist the narrative this time. "I've raised Avi her whole life," she continued. "You think because you babysit a few afternoons a week, you're better equipped to take care of her?" "She came home with bruises, Kaylin. Do you remember that?" My voice was steady. "Do you remember when I asked about it and you brushed it off like it was nothing? She's 5. She should never have to be afraid in her own home." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her eyes were starting to water, but I didn't trust the tears. Not from her, not anymore. "You don't understand what it's like," she said, "being a single mom, being exhausted all the time, trying to hold it all together while everyone judges you." I nodded. "I do understand. I was a single mom. I worked double shifts, came home to a child who needed me, and did it without help. I didn't date men who scared him. I didn't throw away family because I wanted something shinier." Kaylin's face flushed. She wasn't used to me talking back. For years, I'd let her comments slide, let her dismissals pass without confrontation. But this time, I saw her as she really was, entitled, scared, and finally cornered. She tried again. "She's my daughter." "Yes," I said, "and she deserves better from both of her parents. Mikhail knows that. He's trying. You can too. But not by cutting us out. Not by dragging Avi through chaos and pretending everything's fine." She didn't argue. She just stared at me, her breathing heavy, her chest rising and falling like she wanted to scream but couldn't find the words. Then she turned and walked away. I waited until I heard her car pull away before going back inside. Avi looked up from the puzzle. "Was that Mommy?" "Yes," I said, kneeling beside her. "She came to talk for a bit." "Is she mad?" she asked. "No, sweetheart," I said, brushing her hair back. "She's just figuring some things out." Avi leaned into me. "Are you going to be my new mommy now?" I didn't know how to answer that. I pulled her close and held her, my heart splitting in two. I wasn't trying to replace Kaylin. I didn't want to take a mother away from her child. I wanted to give Avi safety. I wanted her to have a chance at a peaceful childhood, one where she didn't have to brace herself every time the front door opened. Later that week, Kaylin's attorney filed a response. She was going to fight the custody transfer. We expected that. But we also had something she didn't: consistency, proof, and Mikhail's full support. The court set a hearing date. In the meantime, the judge granted me temporary custody. Avi stayed with me full time. Mikhail moved in, at least until he could find a new place close by. We made it work. It wasn't glamorous. There were no satin robes or photo backdrops or party favors. But there was laughter. Real, quiet laughter from a 5-year-old who was starting to feel safe again. Kaylin didn't come back to the house. She didn't call again. Her silence said more than her words ever did. She thought she'd control the narrative forever. She thought no one would ever challenge her. But that day at the baby shower, when I handed her that envelope, she learned something. You can only push people so far before they push back. The court hearing was 2 months later. It was quiet, procedural, and not nearly as dramatic as I expected. Kaylin sat across from us in a tan blazer, looking tired. She didn't speak much. Her lawyer tried to make the case that she'd been overwhelmed, misunderstood, unfairly judged. But the evidence didn't lie. We submitted photographs of Avi's bruises, testimonies from teachers, medical records, emails Kaylin had sent, full of contradictions, and Mikhail. He stood in front of that judge and admitted every failure he felt as a father. He didn't try to hide his pain. He didn't blame Kaylin or the system or even himself. He just said, "I want my daughter safe. And my mother is the safest place I know." The judge granted us permanent shared custody, Mikhail and me. Kaylin was given supervised visitation, pending a full psychological evaluation and parenting classes. She didn't protest. She didn't cry. She just signed the papers with a slow, distant look on her face. As we left the courthouse, Mikhail gripped my arm tighter than he meant to. "You saved her," he said. "No," I told him. "We did." Avi started sleeping better. The night terrors stopped. She began humming to herself again while coloring, the way she used to. She'd ask Mikhail to read her bedtime stories, even when she already knew the ending. We planted tomatoes together in the backyard. She named each one after a cartoon character, and every Saturday she'd help me cook pancakes, cracking the eggs even though half of them ended up on the counter. It wasn't perfect. There were tantrums. There were questions I didn't always know how to answer. Why doesn't Mommy come to school events? Why can't I sleep at Mommy's house anymore? I told her the truth, gently, that her mommy was working on some things, and until then, we were going to keep her right here, where she was safe and loved. Kaylin didn't call for several weeks. When she finally did, it was short. "I'm seeing someone new," she said. "We're taking things slow. I'm getting help." I didn't ask what kind. I didn't ask if it was real. I just said, "That's good." She came to her first supervised visit the following month. It was awkward. Avi clung to my leg for the first 10 minutes, unsure of what to make of her mother's sudden interest. But eventually, she walked over and sat beside her. They colored together in the supervised room at the center. I waited outside. When the visit ended, Kaylin looked at me across the parking lot. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. But she nodded. That was enough, for now. I still think about that baby shower sometimes, about the moment everything shifted. I know some people think it was cruel, showing up like that, handing her papers in front of her friends, but they don't know what came before. They don't know the fear in Avi's voice, the bruises, the manipulation, the silence that stretched for years. Sometimes being polite is dangerous. Sometimes the right thing feels cold in the moment, but it's still the right thing. I didn't do any of this because I hated Kaylin. I didn't do it to win. I did it because I loved a little girl more than I cared about being liked, accepted or respected by someone who had made me feel invisible for years. I did it because my son asked for help and because I knew I was strong enough to carry the weight. Love isn't soft all the time. It's not just rocking a child to sleep or kissing a forehead. Sometimes it's showing up with an envelope and standing your ground in a room full of people who wish you'd stay silent. Now, when Avi runs into my arms after school and tells me about her day, when Mikhail comes home with a smile instead of a slumped back, when the house feels full instead of fragile, I know we made it through. I never wanted to be anyone's enemy, but I've learned that peace doesn't always come quietly. Sometimes it comes when you decide that silence has gone on long enough, and sometimes it begins the moment you stop waiting for permission to protect what's yours. If you've ever been made to feel small, unwelcome, or powerless, even in your own family, just know this: your voice matters. Protecting someone you love isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means standing in the storm when everyone else is watching from the porch, But the people who need us most are often the ones who can't speak for themselves. That's when we show up. That's when we don't back down. If this story moved you or reminded you of someone you know, please like the video, share it with a friend, and comment below. I read every single one. I'd love to hear your thoughts or your own story. And if you want more powerful stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Thank you for watching and for standing with those who need a voice.